In the darkness between stars, a desperate message echoed across the void. The signal pulsed weakly through subspace channels, its crystalline harmonics distorted by fear and damage. The message bounced from relay to relay until it reached the Grand Orbital Station, where the Galactic Concord maintained its headquarters. The Concord wasn't a military alliance. It had begun centuries ago as a trading partnership between the gentle myth and the scholarly Creel. Over time, it grew to encompass 27 different species, each bringing their own skills and knowledge. They built beautiful cities together, shared art and science, and believed war was a relic of their primitive pasts. When the message from the Lumari arrived, no one knew what to do. The Lumari lived on a distant world where silicon had evolved into consciousness instead of carbon. Their bodies resembled walking crystals that captured light and turned it into thoughts. They made beautiful music by resonating their limbs and built cities that looked like forests of glass. They had joined the Concord only 50 years ago, bringing their stunning art and peaceful ways. Now their message showed only horror. They call themselves the Void Dominion, said the shaking voice of the Lumari elder, her crystalline form cracked and leaking light. They came without warning. Their ships blackened our skies. They say we are resources to be harvested. Our crystal cores power their weapons. Our young are taken for experiments. Please, in the name of life itself, help us. The transmission ended with the sound of distant explosions and the image of the elder shattering into 1,000 glittering pieces. In the great circular chamber of the Concord Council, 27 representatives sat in stunned silence. The myth representative, his blue fur standing on end with distress, was the first to speak. "We must send aid ships immediately," he said, his voice high and strained. "With what defenses?" asked the representative of the Creel, her bony fingers tapping nervously on the table. "The Concord has no warships. We have 30 police cruisers for the entire territory." Arguments broke out across the chamber. Some wanted to negotiate with the Void Dominion. Others suggested evacuating the surviving Lumari. A few called for hiding and hoping the Dominion would be satisfied with one world. The debate dragged on for 3 days. Meanwhile, more broken messages arrived from the Lumari, each one shorter, more desperate than the last. On the 4th day, Ambassador Lim stood up. He represented the Tal, a species known for their caution and long memories. His grey skin wrinkled with concern as he addressed the council. "There is another option," he said quietly. The chamber fell silent. "We could ask the humans for help." A collective shudder passed through the room. The humans were the newest members of the Concord, joining only 30 years ago. They came from a planet the other species could barely comprehend. A death world where gravity crushed bones, weather killed in 100 ways, and countless predators evolved alongside them. "The humans are violent," whispered the representative of the gentle Zell. "Their history is filled with wars among themselves." "Exactly," said Lim. "They understand fighting in ways we never needed to learn." Councillor Naro of the plant-like fighter shook his leafy head. "Do you suggest we unleash these Deathworlders gut on the galaxy? What if they become worse than the Dominion?" Lim sighed. "I have spent time with humans. Yes, they are frightening in many ways. Their bodies are dense with muscle. Their teeth still show their predator ancestry. Their minds work quickly toward solving problems with action, not talk." He paused, looking around the room. "But they also write poetry about peace. They heal the sick with great care. They cry at beauty. And most importantly, they understand the darkness of the universe in ways we were privileged not to learn." Another message from the Lumari flashed on the screens. Just 3 words this time. "Please, they're coming." The council voted. By a narrow margin, they decided to contact Earth's United Defense Force. Lim himself wrote the message. He explained the situation simply, included all the evidence they had, and added his personal plea. "Human friends, we know your world taught you harsh lessons. We now face a teacher just as cruel. Will you show us what you learned?" When he pressed the transmit button, Lim felt both hope and fear. The humans had kept mostly to themselves since joining the Concord. They sent traders and scholars, but kept their military ships far from conquered space. No one knew exactly how many they had or what weapons they carried. "Do you think they'll come?" asked the myth representative, his fur now flat with exhaustion. "I don't know," Lim answered honestly. "But I've seen humans protect each other. I once watched a human dive into toxic water to save a stranger's child. They are dangerous, yes, but not in the way the Void Dominion is dangerous." The council chambers emptied as everyone went to prepare for whatever would come next. Lim stayed behind, watching the stars through the great windows. Somewhere out there, the Lumari were fighting for survival, and somewhere else, on a planet. With crushing gravity and terrifying storms, humans were receiving his message. He wondered what these Deathworlders would do when they heard the cry for help from across the stars. He both longed for and dreaded their answer. On Earth, Admiral, Kim Han-soo stood in the dimly lit command center, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. The message from the Galactic Concorde had arrived 3 hours ago. Since then, he hadn't moved from his spot, watching the recordings from the Lumari world play on loop. The images showed beautiful crystal cities shattered like broken glass. Crystalline. Beings, people, running from shadows that cut them down without mercy. The final frames captured a Lumari child, its delicate form flickering with dying light as it reached toward the camera. "Play it again," Kim ordered, his voice low and steady. Major Lee, his chief intelligence officer, exchanged worried glances with the others. "Sir, we've watched it 17 times. And I'll watch it 17 more if that's what it takes," Kim replied. He turned to face his staff, 12 men and women who represented the best military minds on Earth. "These Concorde species think we're savages. For 30 years, they've treated us like barely civilized animals they reluctantly let into their club. Now they're asking for our help." Colonel Park, head of fleet operations, stepped forward. "The Concorde has no real military. Their member species evolved on gentle worlds. They never needed to fight like we did." Kim nodded. "And that's why they need us now. These Void Dominion creatures, they're predators, just like the ones our ancestors faced on the plains of Africa. Just like the ones we became." The Admiral turned back to the holographic display, pressing a button to zoom in on the broken Lumari cities. "How many warships can we have ready in the next 24 hours? The room fell silent. General Choi, the oldest member of the staff, cleared his throat. "Sir, are you suggesting a full military response? The Concorde only asked for advisors and perhaps a small defensive force." Kim's eyes hardened. "I read their message, and I read what's between the lines. They're scared, not just of this Dominion, but of us too. They don't want to unleash the Deathworlders." He gestured to the hologram. "But look at what's happening. These crystal people are being harvested, like crops, like resources." He walked slowly around the circular table, looking each staff member in the eye. "Humanity has done terrible things in our history. We've fought wars that scarred our planet. We've hurt each other in ways that still shame us. But one thing we learned: you don't stand by when innocents are slaughtered." Colonel Park nodded first. "All ships, sir?" "Including the ones in deep storage?" "All of them," Kim confirmed. "Everyone on alert. Full combat readiness." Major Lee was already working at her terminal. "I'll begin the awakening protocols for the dormant fleet. The ships beneath the Pacific and Atlantic will need at least 36 hours to surface and prepare." "They have 24, Kim said. "The ships in the mountain bases?" "Faster. Maybe 18 hours, replied Captain Wong from the Air Command. Kim straightened his uniform. "Then that's what we have. 18 hours to launch the largest military operation in human history." He took a deep breath. "Send the call, all reserves activated. All retired personnel with combat experience asked to volunteer. And contact the Concorde ambassador. Tell him we're coming." The next day, Concorde Ambassador Trell stood on the observation deck of his small diplomatic vessel orbiting Earth, at a safe distance. As a representative of the gas giant dwelling Mulvari, he found Earth's gravity uncomfortable, but he'd insisted on being here to witness humanity's response himself. "They said they're mobilizing," he told his assistant nervously. "But I see nothing unusual." His assistant, a young Tal named Sev, pointed to the planet below. "The tracking system shows unusual activity in these areas. Their oceans and some mountain regions." Trell was about to respond when the ship's sensors blared a warning. Energy spike detected, announced the ship's computer. The ocean below, them suddenly churned. Massive doors, camouflaged to look like ordinary seabeds, slid open. From the depths rose enormous shapes, warships that had been hidden beneath the waves. They emerged like metal leviathans, water cascading from their armored hulls. "By the ancient stars," whispered Trell, his gas-filled body contracting in shock. Across the planet, similar scenes unfolded. Mountainsides opened to reveal hidden hangars. Ships rose from desert floors, from beneath Arctic ice, from camouflaged bases in dense jungles. "They kept these hidden?" Sev asked, his grey skin paling further. "All this time?" "They're Deathworlders," Trell said quietly. "On their world, anything that appears weak becomes prey. Within hours, Earth's orbit filled with warships of all sizes. Some were sleek and predatory, designed for speed. Others were massive, bristling with weapons. All moved with precision that spoke of endless drills and preparation. Admiral Kim transported to the flagship, the UDF Sentinel, as the fleet took its final formation. 137 vessels arranged in a perfect three-dimensional battle array. From the bridge, he opened a channel to all ships. "Men and women of Earth's fleet," he began, his voice carrying to every vessel. "Today we answer a call that comes from across the stars. A peaceful people face extinction. They've asked for our help." He paused, looking at the holographic display, showing the full might of humanity's fleet. "Many of you have asked why we should fight for aliens we've never met. My answer is simple: because we are human, and humans protect those who cannot protect themselves." On the observation deck of the Concorde vessel, Trell watched in silence as the human fleet began to move in perfect unison. "They're really going," Sev said in wonder. "All of them?" "Yes," Trell replied. "May the universe have mercy on these Dominion creatures. They awakened something they don't understand." As the human fleet approached the jump point, Admiral Kim gave his final order. "All ships prepare for jump. Target, Lumari system. Mission, search and destroy all Dominion forces." The ships vanished one by one into the jump point, leaving Earth behind. Within 3 days, the Void Dominion would learn what it meant to make enemies of a species born on a world that had tried to kill them every day of their evolution, a species that had survived by becoming the most efficient predators their planet had ever known. The human fleet erupted into the Lumari system in a flash of twisted space. The jump technology they used was considered too dangerous by Concorde standards. They called it reckless and unpredictable. But humans had mastered it decades ago, perfecting what other species feared to use. Commander Park Ji-young stood on the bridge of the assault carrier Thunder, her hands clasped behind her back as she surveyed the tactical display. What she saw made her jaw clench. 3 massive Dominion motherships hung in orbit around the Lumari homeworld. Each was shaped like a jagged black spike, trailing tendrils of smaller craft. They fired continuous energy beams at the planet below, methodically, targeting city after city. "Magnify Sector 4, Park ordered, her voice steady despite the anger building inside her. The screen zoomed in on the planet's surface. The crystalline cities of the Lumari, once gleaming spires that caught and reflected the light of their suns, now burned with strange purple flames. Crystal shouldn't burn like that. The Dominion weapons had to be designed specifically to break down the living crystal of the Lumari people. "Life signs?" Park asked. Lieutenant Kang at the sensor station shook his head. "Scattered and fading, Commander. I estimate fewer than 30% of the population remains." Park turned to face her crew. 20 men and women looked back at her, their faces grim but determined. None had ever fought an alien enemy before. Human conflicts had been internal, for generations. But every person on that bridge had studied warfare their entire careers, preparing for a day they hoped would never come. "The Dominion ships are hailing us," reported Communications Officer Yoon. "They're..." She frowned, adjusting her headset. "They're asking what diplomatic proposal we've brought from the Concorde." A cold smile touched Park's lips. "They think we're here to negotiate." Across the human fleet, similar conversations were happening. The Dominion, used to facing only the peaceful Concorde species, assumed these new arrivals were simply more diplomats coming to offer terms of surrender. In the flagship Sentinel, Admiral Kim received the same message. "Open a channel to Commander." "Park," he ordered. Park's face appeared on his screen. "Admiral." "They don't consider us a threat," Kim said. "Use that. Take Battle Group Sigma and flank their position. Captain Lee will create a diversion with Battle Group Tau. The rest of the fleet will follow my lead for the main assault." Park nodded sharply. "Understood, sir." Within minutes, the human fleet began to move. To the Dominion observers, it appeared disorganized, ships breaking formation, moving in seemingly random patterns. In reality, it was a complex ballet of positioning that humans had perfected, fighting each other across Earth's oceans and skies. On board the lead Dominion mothership, Supreme Commander Krex watched with mild curiosity. "They move strangely," he noted to his second. "Perhaps their navigation systems are primitive." "They appear to be unarmed," his second replied. "I detect no weapon systems like ours." Krex made a sound of dismissal. "More useless Concord species. Send them the standard terms: surrender of all crystalline life forms, immediate withdrawal of any military presence, resource tributes to begin within one rotation." Back on the Thunder, Commander Park received the Dominion's message. She read it once, then closed it without replying. Her ship, along with 15 others, had now moved to position behind Lumari's small moon. "All ships report ready," her tactical officer announced. Park nodded. "Weapons status?" Railguns charged, missile tubes loaded, point defense grid active. Shields at maximum. She took a deep breath. The Dominion ships rely on energy shields calibrated to withstand Concord defensive weapons. "They've never faced kinetic weapons like ours." She looked around the bridge. "Remember your training, remember Earth, and remember what they did to the Lumari." She pressed the ship-wide comm. "All hands, battle stations." Across the human fleet, similar orders rang out. Crew members who had trained their entire lives for a war that never came now moved with practiced precision. Weapon systems that had never been used in actual combat hummed to life. Admiral Kim waited until all battle groups signaled ready. Then he sent a simple message to the entire fleet. "Execute." The Thunder, along with its battle group, accelerated from behind the moon at speeds that would crush any non-human crew. The Dominion sensors detected them only seconds before they opened fire. The first salvo of railgun rounds, tungsten rods accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, struck the nearest mothership before its commanders even realized. They were under attack. The kinetic energy alone overwhelmed shields designed to disperse energy weapons. "Direct hits," reported Thunder's tactical officer. "Their shields are fluctuating." Park nodded. "Launch missiles, target their propulsion systems." Across the human fleet, similar attacks unfolded. Captain Lee's battle group appeared from the system's asteroid belt, launching electromagnetic pulse weapons that disrupted Dominion. Communications. Admiral Kim's main force drove straight toward the largest mothership, unleashing a barrage of fire that lit up space. On the Dominion command ship, panic erupted. "What weapons are these?" Krex shouted as his vessel shuddered. "How are they penetrating our shields?" "Unknown technology," his science officer replied, voice shaking. "They use physical projectiles at impossible speeds and some kind of fusion-based explosives." "Return fire," Krex ordered. "Launch all fighter craft." But the Dominion ships, designed for bombarding planets and intimidating unarmed species, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Their energy weapons required time to charge, time the human ships never gave them. Their fighter craft, expecting to face clumsy Concord vessels, met human pilots who flew with instincts honed by evolution on a predator world. Commander Park watched as her targeting systems tracked a swarm of Dominion fighters approaching. "Point defense grid, full spread," she ordered calmly. Thousands of tiny projectiles erupted from the Thunder's defense grid, filling space with a cloud of metal moving at hypersonic speeds. The Dominion fighters flew straight into it. None emerged from the other side. 13 minutes into the battle, the first Dominion mothership began to break apart. A series of precisely targeted human missiles had shattered its main power core. Secondary explosions cascaded through its structure. It split in half. Then quarters, then smaller pieces, its crew never having time to reach escape pods. "One down," Park reported to Admiral Kim. On the bridge of the Sentinel, Kim nodded grimly. Continue the attack. No survivors. From the surface of the Lumari world, the few surviving crystalline beings watched the battle unfold in their skies. For weeks, they had known only terror and death. Now they witnessed something new, predators from another world, hunting the creatures that had hunted them. A young Lumari turned to an elder. "Who are they?" the youth asked, its voice creating harmonic rings in the crystalline air. The elder's cracked form swayed slightly. "They call themselves humans. The Concord feared them. Now I understand why." Above them, the night sky filled with the light of a second Dominion mothership as it exploded into 1,000 burning fragments. The battle for the Lumari world would be over in less than an hour. The war against the Void Dominion had just begun. Das last Dominion mothership, its hull breached in 17 places, limped toward the jump point. Emergency lights flickered across its damaged surface. Inside, surviving crew members fought to keep critical systems online. Their commander, sub-hierarch, Vex, stood amid the chaos of his shattered bridge, purple blood dripping from a gash in his scaled head. "Jump engines at minimum power," reported his navigation officer. "We can make one jump, no more," Vex snarled, showing rows of needle-like teeth. "Set course for Nexus 7. The fleet there will crush these interlopers." He gazed at the tactical display, where the human ships were regrouping after their devastating attack. "So they caught us by surprise. It won't happen again." The damaged mothership vanished into the jump point, leaving behind the wreckage of its sister ships. Small Dominion craft followed, carrying the few survivors who had managed to escape the human onslaught. On the surface of the Lumari homeworld, Admiral Kim walked carefully through a garden of crystal structures. Each formation pulsed with soft light. The Lumari themselves gathered to meet the human commander. Their crystalline bodies, some cracked and damaged from the Dominion attacks, sparkled in the strange violet light of their sun. The largest formation shifted, forming a vaguely humanoid shape. This was Elder Prism, leader of the Lumari Council. "You have driven the destroyers away," the elder said, her voice creating ripples of light within her crystal form. "We offer our deepest gratitude. When your ships have resupplied, we will help." "You return to your world." Kim shook his head. "We're not leaving yet." The elder's form pulsed with confusion. "But the threat is gone. The dark ships have fled." "They've retreated," Kim corrected. "Not the same thing. Even now they're regrouping at their nearest base. In days, maybe hours, they'll return with more ships." "Then you will stay to defend our world?" asked a smaller crystal formation. A younger Lumari. Kim looked out over the shattered crystal plains that had once been a beautiful city. "No, we're going after them." The gathered Lumari created a harmonic sound of surprise. Elder Prism shifted closer to Kim. "I don't understand," she said. "The danger has passed. The Concord way is to rebuild and strengthen defenses, not to seek conflict." Kim gestured for his aide to activate a holographic projector. A three-dimensional map of nearby star systems appeared between them. "On Earth, we learned hard lessons about predators," he explained, his voice gentle but firm. "When a wolf tastes sheep's blood, it always returns to the flock. The only way to protect the sheep is to hunt down the wolf." The elder vibrated with distress. "But hunting them to their homes, this is not our way." "I know," Kim said simply. "That's why you called us." Back in orbit, the human fleet was already preparing for pursuit. Commander Park stood in the Thunder's repair bay, watching technicians patch damage from the battle. "How soon can we jump?" she asked her chief engineer. 2 hours, he replied, wiping grease from his hands. "Railgun barrels need replacing. Missile tubes are being reloaded." Park nodded, studying a tactical display on her wrist computer. "Admiral, Kim has ordered us to form hunter-killer groups. We're joining Strike Team 3 with the destroyers Typhoon and Dragon." "Hunter-killer?" the engineer asked. "We hunt the enemy to their lairs," Park explained, "and we kill them there." Within 6 hours, the human fleet had reorganized into 12 strike teams. Each team consisted of complementary vessel types, fast scout ships, heavily armed destroyers, and support craft carrying Marines trained for boarding actions. Like wolves forming packs, They prepared for the hunt. Admiral Kim addressed the fleet from the bridge of the Sentinel. "The Dominion believes they've escaped. They think they'll have time to gather reinforcements. They expect us to fortify the Lumari world and wait for their return." His eyes hardened. "We're going to show them how humans wage war." The strike teams entered the jump points one after another, following the ion trails left by the fleeing Dominion ships. They emerged in the Nexus 7 system to find the Dominion fleet in disarray, still repairing battle damage, still trying to understand what had happened. The human attack was swift and merciless. Strike Team 2, led by Captain Lee, destroyed the system's defense platforms before they could activate. Strike Team 5 targeted the communication arrays, cutting off the Dominion's ability to call for help. The remaining teams converged on the wounded ships. "They're not fighting like Concord forces," Sub-Hierarch Vex realized too late. Watching the tactical display as human ships executed complex maneuvers his analysts couldn't predict. "They're fighting like predators." The Nexus 7 outpost fell in less than a day. The humans captured intact Dominion navigation charts, revealing the locations of 6 more outposts. Without pausing to celebrate their victory, the strike teams jumped to these new targets. For the next 2 weeks, the human fleet moved through Dominion space like a virus through a body. They struck without warning, destroyed all resistance, and vanished before reinforcements arrived. The Dominion, never before challenged in battle, found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to understand war on a fundamental level they could not match. In the Dominion Command Center, buried deep, inside an asteroid fortress, High Hierarch Morv called an emergency council. Representatives from the 7 Dominion species gathered, their faces showing emotions ranging from rage to fear. "These humans," Morv said, his deep voice resonating through the chamber, "they fight with a ferocity we have not encountered before. They do not stop when we retreat. They do not negotiate when we offer terms. Our latest intelligence suggests they've destroyed 22% of our fleet," said the chief strategist. "They're moving faster than we can reposition our forces." Morv made a decision. "Send them a formal peace offer, full withdrawal from conquered space, reparations for the Lumari. We can find easier prey elsewhere in the galaxy." The message was transmitted on all frequencies. The Dominion waited for a response, confident that, like all species, humans would prefer peace to continued bloodshed. Admiral Kim received the message on the bridge of the Sentinel. He read it once, then looked up at his officers. "They think, we'll stop because they promised to leave the Concord alone," he said. "They don't understand that once a predator shows its nature, it must be dealt with permanently." He turned to his communications officer. "Send this response. Humanity rejects your terms." Less than 6 hours later, strike teams 1, 3, and 7 converged on the Dominion Command Center. The asteroid fortress was protected by the heaviest defenses in Dominion space: energy shields, automated weapon platforms, and a fleet of elite warships. Commander Park stood on the Thunder's bridge as they emerged from the jump point. "All weapons free," she ordered. "Target their command structure." The battle for the Dominion heart began. On the display screens of civilian worlds throughout the galaxy, beings watched in awe as humans showed the stars what it meant to be born of a death world, what it meant to evolve as both predator and prey, what it meant to fight not for glory or conquest, but for survival, their own, and those they had chosen to protect. The remnants of the once mighty Void Dominion scattered, like autumn leaves in a storm. Their great motherships, now broken and burning, drifted through distant systems. Surviving captains fled in all directions, no longer part of an empire, but refugees seeking any port that might shelter them from the human hunters. On the Lumari, homeworld, the dawn light caught in the crystalline buildings, sending rainbows dancing across the recovering landscape. Where broken shards had littered the ground, new growth emerged, the Lumari healing their world one crystal at a time. Human medical ships hovered in the lower atmosphere, their white hulls gleaming against the violet sky. Teams of doctors and engineers moved among the crystal formations, using technology designed on Earth to help the alien beings. Special sonic devices encouraged crystal regrowth. Carefully calibrated energy fields strengthened damaged structures. Dr. Jin walked slowly through a garden of recovering Lumari younglings. Their small crystal forms still showed cracks from the Dominion assault, but they glowed with stronger light each day. She adjusted settings on a healing array, smiling as the nearest crystal child pulsed with brighter colors. "Your people heal quickly," she told the Lumari caretaker, a tall spire of blue-green crystal. "Much faster than we expected." "Because of your help," replied the caretaker, voice creating harmonic ripples in the air. "We would not have survived without Earth's warriors. Now we thrive because of Earth's healers." Dr. Jin nodded, but something in her expression made the caretaker's lights dim slightly. "You seem troubled," the crystal being observed. Jin sighed. "Our ships will leave soon. Admiral Kim believes we've done all we can here." "You fear the Dominion will return when you're gone?" "No," Jin said, watching the crystal children play in patterns of light. "They won't recover for generations, if ever. But there are other dangers in the galaxy, other predators." The caretaker swayed thoughtfully. "You humans always prepare for the next battle, even in times of peace." "Especially in times of peace," Jin corrected gently. Across the galaxy in the Grand Chamber of the Conquered Council, a very different conversation was taking place. Representatives of 27 species sat in a circle, their voices rising in heated debate. Ambassador Choi of Earth stood calmly in the center, waiting for the uproar to subside. Councillor Naro, the plant-like fighter, raised his leafy limbs for attention. "We formally recognize and appreciate humanity's intervention," he said. "The Lumari would have been destroyed without your help, but the level of force used—" His voice trailed off. "Excessive," finished Councillor Trell of the gas-dwelling Molvari. "You didn't just defeat the Dominion fleet at Lumari. You hunted them across 7 systems. You destroyed their homeworld defenses. You shattered their entire civilization." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Choi waited until they quieted. "I understand your concerns," she said, her voice soft but carrying to every corner of the room. "To your species, our response seems harsh, perhaps even cruel." She looked around at the assembled councillors, beings from worlds with gentle suns, predictable weather, and few natural predators. "For millennia you evolved on worlds of plenty," Choi continued. "Worlds where cooperation came naturally because resources were abundant, where defenses were rarely needed because threats were few." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Humans evolved fighting for survival. Our world tried to kill us every day, with weather, with disease, with predators that saw us as food. Later we fought each other for resources, for territory, for mere survival." The chamber had grown very quiet. Even the most agitated councillors now listened intently. "When you asked for our help," Choi said, "you invited our nature into your conflict. We don't fight to make a point or to establish boundaries. When humans fight, we fight to end the threat completely, because on Earth, half measures get you killed." A small, insect-like councillor raised a delicate limb. "But the danger is past. Surely now you can rest." Choi smiled sadly. "That's not how we think. Right now Admiral Kim is leading our fleet home, and even as they travel, they're scanning for threats, running battle drills, planning defenses for the next attack." "But there is no next attack," insisted Councillor Trell. "The Dominion is finished." "Perhaps," Choi acknowledged, "but there are always more predators. The galaxy is vast and full of dangers we haven't met yet. Humans understand this in our bones. It's why we survived Earth." Meanwhile, the human fleet had begun its long journey home. On the bridge of the flagship Sentinel, Admiral Kim reviewed reports from the various strike teams. The final tally of the campaign scrolled across his screen. Dominion ships destroyed, bases neutralized, territories liberated. The victory had been absolute. Lieutenant Kang approached with a data pad. "Sir, the Concord has sent their formal recognition of our service. They've awarded Earth something called the Stellar Peace Medallion." Kim raised an eyebrow. "Sounds fancy." "It is, sir. No non-conquered species has ever received it." Kang hesitated. "They've also sent a polite inquiry about our future military posture, meaning they want to know if we're standing down now that the Dominion is defeated," Kim translated. "Yes, sir." Commander Park suggested a diplomatic response. Kim nodded, gazing out at the stars streaking past the viewport. Tell them that Earth remains vigilant but peaceful. Tell them our ships are returning to their defensive positions. You don't think they'll understand what that means, sir? Probably not, Kim admitted. They come from gentle worlds. They think peace is the natural state of things. Later that day, a young communications officer found Kim in the ship's observation lounge. Sir, the Concord ambassador has sent a personal message. She asks if this level of military readiness is truly necessary after such a decisive victory. Kim stared out at the endless stars, each potentially hiding unknown threats. He remembered Earth's long history, how periods of peace had always been brief islands in a sea of conflict, how vigilance had always been the price of survival. Peace isn't a state of being, he explained, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's long struggle. On a death world, peace is something you work for every day, something you protect, something you're always prepared to fight for because the alternative is extinction. The officer nodded slowly, beginning to understand. 3 weeks later, the human fleet returned to Earth's orbit. Ships disappeared once more beneath oceans, into mountain bases under Arctic ice. Crews returned to their families, telling stories of distant stars and strange crystalline beings saved from destruction. And throughout the galaxy, word spread among hundreds of species. Stories were told in trading posts and diplomatic gatherings, in the quiet corners of space stations and the grand halls of ancient worlds. The stories spoke of a species from a harsh world who fought with terrifying efficiency, who showed no mercy to aggressors, but gentle care to victims, who understood war in ways peaceful species could not comprehend. The stories always ended the same way. If darkness threatens your world, if predators come to your door, pray to whatever gods you have that the Deathworlders answer when you call.